Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Lauren Pastrana in for Jim DeFede. For the first time in nearly 60 years, Miami-Dade County has a sheriff. And for the first time ever, that sheriff is a woman. As of this weekend, Rosie Cordero-Stutz has been in office for 5 months. We sat down with her recently for an all-encompassing interview reflecting on the last 150 or so days. We talked about immigration, politics, policing, and what she envisions for the agency moving forward. All right, Sheriff. So we're more than 100 days into your tenure as the sheriff of Miami-Dade County. Before we get into the nitty-gritty and the changes that have been implemented, first, tell me a moment in these first few months as sheriff that make you smile, that you come in here and be like, this is why I love this job.
Well, gosh, we had Embrace Girls Foundation. It's an organization that helps to support young ladies and teaches them etiquette and confidence and helps them with literacy to make sure that they are where they need to be. And they're an organization that we've been involved with for many years. But they hosted me as a special guest for their tea party, their formal tea party. And they came here and they set up this beautiful event. And to sit with those girls and to hear them and to see their eyes light up, to see someone that looks like them in this position, that was really special.
Do you feel the weight of that, of little girls and young women looking up to you as the first female sheriff in Miami-Dade County?
I think I do a little. I feel very blessed to have had the opportunities, but I also know that I earned the opportunities, that nothing was given, that I fought very hard and I worked very hard. And so I would say that when I see someone looking at me like that, please don't confuse that for just it happened, it's magic. It isn't. The magic is in the hard work, in the grit, every day that you're doing what you need to do, whatever, whatever your why is, the reason why, whether it's a school teacher, right, or a nurse, or so many professions that are wonderful and honorable in and of themselves. But when you do it with that passion from inside, it just raises it to another level.
We were talking a little bit about change and, are we going to see changes to the vehicles, changes to the uniform? We see a change to the logo and obviously the change at the helm. What changes do you think you've already put in place that have been the most impactful so far?
Most impactful, hands down, is the reorganization of the command internally. So having spent 29 years growing up in this organization, working, having relationships, really knowing people's strengths, right? I was able to tap into that immediately. And in the reorganization, that was a big piece of it for me. I think often people try to put a square peg in a round hole, right? And you don't do either justice. There's a time for circle, there's a time for square. And I think being able to be the sheriff and making that decision unilaterally was a real strength, I think. And I'm seeing it already. In the first few months, this office of the sheriff is we're just running. We are running and flying, getting to do all the things that I know this community wants from us. And then being able to listen to my community and then turning that around into actionable items. So for me, it's been an amazing few first months.
Have you seen any resistance or maybe some trepidation from the community who now see you as something different? Instead of the badge logo, it's the star logo. Or they're like, where is our Miami-Dade law enforcement? Who are you guys?
So you'll be surprised a little bit. People will say like, oh, so now you're the sheriff? So what happens to the police department? Where are they now? And I'm like, oh no, that's not how it works, right? So we've assumed them and now we're an independent office. But I'm gonna also say that this county doesn't even really understand the strength in the office of a sheriff. And that's another key piece for me. I think as we evolve together, right, as we start and build this foundation for the office of the sheriff, the community is also gonna learn the strength of the office of the sheriff. And I think that's a journey that we're gonna go through together.
Do you have concerns, though, that your career law enforcement, that's where you come from, that's your background, but now that it's an elected position, do you fear that potentially down the road it could become a career politician's post instead?
Yes, that is a huge concern for me. It's probably one of the reasons why I really wanted to run for sheriff. Look, the sheriff is an elected position, but public safety is what we do, right? And so with 29 years in law enforcement, I was bringing that to the position, to the office of the sheriff, to the sheriff, and not just any sheriff, but the first one. And we all know that, you get one chance to do it right. And having that foundation, someone who really did come up in this community in law enforcement, with my experiences and my relationships, to be able to bring that into this office. Because again, people just don't know what they don't know. And in a way, if you think about it, if you are not that knee deep in what's going on, then that means that you feel safe and secure in your community, which means that we are doing a good job. So it's a double-edged sword, right? They don't know, maybe they don't know, but it's maybe because they can live their lives in what they feel is a safe manner. And that's really what we want for everyone in Dade County.
What's been the biggest challenge for you thus far in this role?
The politics. So I say the word politics, and I think it's probably very overused, I think. What I mean by that is that now my role as sheriff has a lot to do with interaction with other local governments, with obviously our county government, even at the state level. And those are not things that I knew before taking the role of sheriff, right? I didn't know how big a voice Miami-Dade County would have at the state level. And it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a very good thing. But that was surprising.
So in that vein, what's your relationship like with the mayor? How are you two able to work together knowing that she had endorsed your opponent and had a different, horse in the race at one point in this?
Yes. So I think that ultimately we're professionals in our positions. And so I also get to work a lot with the commissioners as well. I think that's different because before we were under the mayor's umbrella, right, in her portfolio. And now as an elected sheriff, I have the chance to deal with everyone on the commission as well as with the mayor. So I think that changes the dynamics as well.
How does that affect the budgeting for the sheriff's office? Now, is it still under the mayor's office, or is it now you have your own entity that you are now in charge of? And did you feel ready to handle that?
So this is a great question because I think this is one of the things that most of our community doesn't really understand. So the county government is still responsible for providing the budget to the sheriff's office. That is part of the functions, okay? But now as a sheriff, I put in my request for a budget, and I do that to the chair, through the chair. And obviously to all the other commissioners. And then the mayor's role is now to, when that budget is approved, after she does her presentation and they agree upon it, she finds how it's going to be funded, right? And how that's all dispersed. Now differently, prior when we were a police department, we were one little department under a huge umbrella of many departments. And so we submitted a budget and then it got cut, reshaped, taken away, however, before the one final presentation before the commission. So now I get to speak to why I'm asking for something and why it's important to this community. And I think I'm in a good place to be able to do that. I know I have the skills and ability and the knowledge to be able to explain as to why we need things a certain way.
You mentioned the politics being a challenge. Do you think it would be better off for this office and this agency for it to be a nonpartisan race, perhaps? There are other races in the county that don't put R or D next to the person's name. Why? I don't know if you have any reasoning behind why that is, and if you feel like it should be done differently.
Yeah. So it is statutory. That's why we do that. It's a partisan position. So I think that naively, long ago, I say long ago is probably a year and a half ago, right before the office of the sheriff, or me running for it, I should say. I thought, no, it should be nonpartisan. But now I understand that there are some benefits in being able to garner the support, right, to move things forward. And that's a whole other arena that is new to me, that I'm learning. I think I've been able to be successful so far. I look forward to continuing in that arena, to be able to garner support for some of the things that we need here in South Florida, in Tallahassee. But having that relationship on the partisan side is absolutely beneficial, if that helps.
You had the support of President Donald Trump in your run for sheriff. Did you feel like that was polarizing at all? Was there any little bit that thought, ooh, this might, upset some potential voters in Miami-Dade County?
So I think that, you have to be realistic and understand that I came from a place where being honest about who I am is an integral part of what I do in my profession, right? So I needed to be honest with everyone as to who I was. The citizens of Dade County got to choose who their sheriff was. And that's the beauty, of this country. So for me, I've been a lifelong Republican my entire life. I spent 28 years up until that point working in this community without ever discussing that. It was not a topic of conversation, but I know I served this county well, right? So to be able to say so and be very proud of it, to have achieved the endorsement of President Trump was really incredible to me. It was a very humbling moment.
When we come back, we push the sheriff on immigration and how her agency plans to assist ICE, plus how she supports her deputies as they cope with mental health struggles. Don't go away. Welcome back to Facing South Florida. I'm Lauren Pastrana. We continue our extensive sit-down interview with Sheriff Rosie Cordero-Stutz and dive deep into immigration enforcement and mental health matters. Here's what she had to say.
I'm an immigrant, right? I came to this country when I was 2 months old. My parents fought and they did everything they could. My mom, she sponsored, 10 of her siblings to come into this country who are all grown up, got married, had children, who are successful American citizens. We are the American dream. And here I was, now being endorsed by President Trump. Back then he was running as well. It was a really proud moment for me. I'm still proud of that. And I think I was honest with people and they got to choose and they chose me. So I'm pretty proud.
You mentioned your own personal immigration story and your journey coming to the United States and achieving that American dream. There's obviously a lot of people out there trying to do the same right now, but they are feeling targeted. They are feeling scared. They are worried because of the federal immigration policies. And your office has said you would support immigration and customs enforcement. Before we get into all that, what does that mean? What does support look like from the sheriff's office for ICE?
Yeah, so I think that's such an important key piece. I think it's a piece that sometimes in the not knowing is where the fear stems from, right? So we are part of an MOU with the federal government.
What's an MOU? Okay.
A memorandum. We're part of a memorandum of understanding with the federal government. And what it means is that we will support them in their roles. So as, for example, if we come across someone who has an order of detention, that we are going to contact the federal agency and notify them and have them come out and do their part. Or if it's one that's already that they can be transported to jail, we're going to do that. Just like if they had an arrest warrant, we are going to obey the law and support the law. That's what we're doing right now. We are also additionally providing, there will be some training for the deputies so that deputies will be able to do some initial investigation to determine if an individual they contact fits a criteria to then contact the federal government, and then they can make a determination. So that's like step 2. Right now, where we are is in our continued support for our law enforcement partners, and we've been doing that for years. That is not new. The difference is that obviously there's more of a focus on it at the national and now at the state level as well. So you're seeing more numbers.
All right, so I have a couple follow-up questions, and you kind of just touched on one. Good. The memorandum of understanding. You said this is not new, or is that? Is the memorandum new?
Okay.
Or has that been in place for multiple administrations and it's just we're hearing more about it now?
Yes. So we have had that MOU in place for many years. But what happens is memorandum of understandings, they get retouched up, and that's what happened recently. So that part is new, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And as far as you mentioned the training for local deputies to be able to potentially identify people who might be in this country illegally, how do you stop that from veering into racial profiling and civil rights infractions?
Well, first and foremost is training, number 1. Number 2 is that is what the MOU allows for. That is not saying that that's what's going to happen. So this allows our deputies to have the training. Then the federal government will have to give us credentialing because we don't have jurisdiction in these matters. So what we're talking about is a lot of steps and layers to ensure that things are done the right way. Understanding that my deputies go through plenty of training when it comes to how we interact with our community, right? We're not about to break the law in how we make contact. Let's take it one step further. I know the fear is I'm not going to call the police if I need the police because of these situations. And that's the one thing that I want to ensure our community is there are laws to protect the victims of crimes. If you need the police, call 911. Our first question is, well, we are not there when we respond to a 911 call to find out what the status is. We're there because someone is in need of our assistance in local law enforcement. And understanding that that is the same across this great state, right? Because we're seeing this all over. We understand that there are fears, and we understand that the concern is that local law enforcement is going to take that as a priority. My priority to this county is the safety of this community. If you need help, call 911. Please don't hesitate.
If a little abuelita who, she falls and gets hurt and she needs to call 911, but she is an undocumented immigrant in this country, no other, offenses on her record, totally clean, should she, obviously you're saying to call, but could she be risking potentially putting herself on a list for deportation, even though her only violation is being here undocumented?
So you made a great question. And you just said it, in your question you answered it, which is we don't have the authority to put her on a list for deportation. Our job is to go help her get off and get her fire rescue and get her the help she needs so that she can be safe.
How do you reach the community with this message?
I think it's so important that we continue the lines of communication and have them open. One of the things that we initiated right after I got sworn in is to share with the sheriff, where I was going out to communities and having this conversation just like you and I are having now, but with a community face to face, and that I can hear from them what their concerns are, and that we've got the right people in the room to address those concerns in an effective, quick manner. For me, it's so important that we are really responsive, and that comes from communication. Constant communication, whether it's interviews, whether it's town meetings, whether it's ask the sheriff a question, which you can go on our MDSO webpage and ask me the question. Don't listen to the rumors. Ask me the question and I'll answer.
Let's talk about the incident that happened the day that we were first supposed to speak. There was this call that came in from what we were hearing, because we were in the lobby, as a potential active shooter threat, and you rushed straight over there. What do you rate the agency's response to that whole incident?
Oh gosh, I want to say 10 out of 10. And I know there were still things that we could have done better, but I mean, I was just extremely proud of our response. So one of the things that I heard was like, my God, but it was so many, like, it was so visible. Did it have to be that way? Yes. Because if it had been a full-blown active shooter, in this case, unfortunately, we later learned, right, in that moment we didn't know, but later learned that it was a domestic case and it was a targeted shooting. If it had been anything but that, if it had been what we thought it could be, that's the response you want.
These deputies see a lot. You've been on the street.
Yes.
You know what they see. Sometimes it's ugly, it's painful, it's very difficult to go home with some of the things that you all see in your line of work. I have done a lot of reporting on first responder mental health, both firefighters, police officers. I know you were on the First Alarm podcast with Carolyn Acosta. I have interviewed her and told her story about her husband. Mental health in this department, where does that rank on your list of priorities right now?
Very, very high, very high. I've been very proactive in saying so. And what we've done is, we've been very blessed to have a robust, service here for our employees. But I want to find more ways that we can support them. So we've been looking at how we can get additional options for our deputies. I've taken the chaplaincy program and really I'm looking at it, trying to rebuild it and make it more robust so that we have more of a spiritual support system for our employees. Science, there's so much new science in how people can deal with trauma and anxiety. And so anything that I can do to help facilitate the well-being of my deputies, I will do. I think this is the best job in the world. It is the most meaningful job in the world, but it's the toughest job as well. We going home and then turning around and coming back to work the next day after you suffer trauma is literally what our deputies do every day. And that's the same for all law enforcement. So we have to recognize this, we have to take the steps, and we have to be aware. I feel also blessed to be able to do that, because I think that, I know this is gonna sound weird, but I do think that because I'm a woman in this role, I can embrace that side even a little bit stronger than my male counterparts. And I'm going to take it. I'll take it. I will embrace it, and I'll speak to it.
Do you think that the incident involving the former police director was kind of a light switch moment here? Like, whoa, we really need to take action here in protecting our mental health? I
do. I think that the truth is that particular trauma affected this police department then, collectively. And you could feel it. You could literally feel it in the air. And so that was part of my process and thinking, like, it's not just one incident. It's a layer upon layer upon layers of incidents that occur that affect us. And so I want them to feel, I want the deputies to feel that they have somewhere to go if they need help. I think that hopelessness is not something that I want any of them feeling.
And you think that being a woman encourages that atmosphere here, that it's okay to have emotions and to express them?
I do. I think it's much more easily accepted because it's coming from a woman. And so that's a beautiful, I think, segue into, my role as sheriff and being the first Hispanic woman ever in the state of Florida to have this title. There's responsibility in that. And sometimes I get to step into places that maybe others can't as easily. I'm not saying that they can't, but as easily. People always, well, what are your challenges? My challenges can be, one of many. I've been in this profession for a long time, and I've always been a woman, and we're a male-dominated, profession. I get to own some spaces that I can claim, I think, with pride, and that's one of them.
After the break, we go rapid fire for a little fun with the sheriff. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Facing South Florida. I'm Lauren Pastrana. Before we go, we did have a little fun with the sheriff, challenging her to a round of rapid fire questions. Check it out. Ready?
Rapid fire?
Rapid fire. I'm just going to ask you like either this or that, this or that, okay? This or that. So I'm curious. Okay. Regular coffee or cafecito?
Regular coffee.
Really? Okay, I thought I knew the answer to that, but I was way off. All right. What was the last show you binged?
Binge. Chaos on Netflix.
Oh, okay. I have to check that one out. Okay. What is always in your patrol car or now your office? What do you always have handy?
What do I always have handy? My eyeglass case.
Okay. All right. I did see you with that in your hand earlier when you walked in. Okay. What's your favorite Dominican dish?
Mango.
Okay. And where do you get it here? Where's your favorite place to go get it
Come
here?
on. I cook it.
You just make it. All right. Everyone go to the sheriff's house if you want good mango. Okay.
Sorry.
Are you a texter or a caller?
Texter.
Okay. All right. What's one word that your friends would use to describe you?
Oh, gosh. I guess loyal.
What's one word your deputies would use to describe you?
Loyal.
And if you weren't in law enforcement, what would you be doing right now?
Oh, gosh. If I weren't in law, what would I be doing right now? Maybe reading a book on the beach.
Retired and living life.
Yes, I absolutely would be retired. Traveling. That's what I'd be doing.
Wonderful. Thank you to the sheriff for her time, and thank you for watching. That's all the time we have today. I'll see you during the week on CBS News Miami at 5, 6, and 11. Enjoy the rest of your day.